Good morning and welcome to the Minneapolis Institute of Arts, or I guess the Institute of Art now. I'm Boyd Ratchey, the president of the Friends, and in the spirit of the season, we wish everyone a happy Hanukkah and then a Merry Christmas too, for all of you, for everyone who's here. I hope you had a chance to enjoy the coffee and the Russian tea cakes, which it seemed to me as a Norwegian, it seemed much more Scandinavian. But it was still very, very tasty and delightfully messy, as I show. We do thank the Rochester affiliate for those wonderful treats. Uh, Today's lecture by I'm getting the name right, Wing Young Huie. He told me the last part of his name rhymes with Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Huey. So he's fairly relaxed, and I'm glad he's here to speak to us today about his art and his photography and his work. This is all sponsored by the Mark and Mary Goff Fetterman Fund for the Friends, and we should be able to really enjoy it today. Glad to welcome you, Wing, and we will enjoy your remarks. I have several announcements. As you can see, we have a number of events at the Friends. The book club tomorrow, the book club on the 19th, and then we have the Friends lecture on the 20th. But we also have a Friends-only tour of the Carthusian Art Museum here in town that has a collection of Kahuli art and other art. And if I want to encourage everyone who's a friend to renew your membership, both either at the desk or on the internet. And if you're not a friend, I want to encourage you to join the Friends, because you're certainly welcome and we'd like to have you participate in any one of these events. Our next, as I mentioned, our next lecture, Art in Bloom, will open April 25th through Sunday, the 28th. We've chosen a piece this year that's one of the key pieces in the collection. It's by Christine Belcourt. It's A Delicate Balance. Wonderful piece. It's available. You can see it today in Gallery 301 if you'd like to see it. But it has as a theme the environment. It's by an indigenous painter, Christine Belcourt. She'll be speaking. We hope to really have a good turnout for Art in Bloom. Now I'm going to introduce Leslie Arena, who will introduce Wing, today's lecturer. She has a splendid resume. She's the Associate Curator of Contemporary Art with an emphasis on migration and photography as an agent for social change. In the resume, marvelous. Previously, she was the curator of photography at the Smithsonian Institute, the National Gallery. And then worked for a time at the Museum of Modern Art. She has a BA from Yale, a master's, and a PhD from Northwestern University in art history. She's even more splendid personally. Leslie?
Thank you so much for the kind introduction. It's wonderful to see so many of you here this morning. Thanks to the Friends and for everyone else in attendance. It's really an honor to be introducing today's speaker, Wing Young Huie. Huie has photographically captured the complex cultural realities of American society for more than 40 years. His projects have been exhibited in museums, nationally and internationally, but his best-known works, Lake Street, USA, and the University Avenue Project, were epic public art projects that transformed Minneapolis and Saint Paul neighborhood thoroughfares into 6-mile community galleries, reflecting the everyday lives of thousands of its citizens. He has received many, many grants and awards, including being named to the Star Tribune's Artist of the Year in have 2000 here, that's right. And he was also honored with the McKnight Distinguished Artist Award in 2018, the only photographer ever to have received the award in its 23-year history. So thank you for getting photography out there. His eighth and most personal book, Chineseness, The Meanings of Identity and the Nature of Belonging, was published by the Minnesota Historical Society Press in 2018 and won a Minnesota Book Award and a Northeastern Minnesota Book Award as well. In 2020, he was honored with the Award for Excellence by the University of Minnesota Hubbard School of Journalism and Mass Communication Alumni Society Board. Mia is extremely lucky to have Huie's work in its collection, including photographs from his groundbreaking project, Frogtown, and several of them are actually on view in multiple spaces right now at the museum, one in the Harrison Gallery on the 3rd floor in the exhibition Another Look that closes this Sunday, and also in the new installation, Reimagining Native / American Art, on view through May 2024, also on the 3rd floor. So please help me this morning in welcoming Wing Young Huie, who today will be speaking about his photographic practice and a question I find extremely evocative: how are we formed by photographs? Thank you.
You can go ahead and turn down the lights. Thank you all for being here. This is a trip down memory lane in so many ways. Thank you, Boyd and Leslie, for the wonderful introduction. Thank you all for being here. This is truly an honor. Mia is where I began to absorb art in my 20s and dreaming of possibly someday of being an artist. So to be standing here on the stage and having my photograph as part of 2 concurrent exhibitions is a bit surreal. I give a lot of, I think maybe the most impact I have is in classrooms. I'm in classrooms of all different kinds, from kindergarten to college, showing students what I do so they can do it. And I'm going to kind of model for you what I do. We're going to pack a lot into this hour, and so I won't really be able to do it the way I do it in a classroom, because what I have students do is turn and talk, and I have a lot of questions for them. And I say, these are open-ended questions, and there is no right or wrong answer. These are questions about photography and life. And so that's a big question. How are we formed by photographs? So to get at that question, I often start with this question. Of all the photographs that you've seen in your life, how many seem kind of fake? Think of a percentage. And what are some examples of photographs you feel do not reflect reality in a true way? And what are some that do? So I have students talk with each other, maybe for several minutes. We don't really have time to do this, but think about it for a second. How many feel that 50% seem kind of fake? How many think maybe it's more? How many think that maybe it's 90%? Sometimes students go, 100%. I mean, what is real? It's a big question. And students like to talk about this for quite a while. And often they bring up social media. Whatever that number is, let me ask you another question. How have all of those photographs shaped how you look at the world? How many feel a lot? So how much of how we see each other in ourselves is based on images we don't even believe. There's just too many. We can't help it. We don't even think about it. So think about it. Every single day, whether you want to or not, you're just in your field of vision. Commercialized, idealized, filtered, digital reality. And then there's AI. So how much of how we see each other and ourselves is based on those images rather than direct conversations, direct interactions? What is real? The best comment I ever got about my photographs was from a 6th grader. He gave a presentation to his class, and afterwards he came up to me and said, "I really like your pictures." It's great. What do you like about them? He says, "They're real." Don't you ever see photographs that are real? He goes, "Not really." So whether your idea of reality is shaped by Life magazine or Instagram, the question remains, what is real? This first photograph I didn't take. That's my family. Which one do you think is me? How many people think that's me? How about this guy? So many 6th graders think that's me. How about this guy? How about this guy? Yeah, that's me with my hand in my pocket. I'm the youngest in my family. And you know how my family photographs my sister? She always has this great big smile, every single family photograph. My brother, that's not his best smile, but he actually won a smiling contest when he was like 12 years old. We have a photograph of him holding his big trophy because of how well he smiled. Me, I always have this expression. I ask students to describe my expression, and don't worry about hurting my feelings. You look sad. You look like you don't want to have your picture taken. You look confused. Here's me with the same expression. Got all dressed up to go to school. Nettleton Elementary in Duluth. Everyone in my family was born in Duluth except me. I'm sorry, it's the other way around. Everyone in my family was born in China except me. I was born and raised in Duluth. And we were the only, oh, you got some Duluthians in the, we were the only Asian family in our neighborhood, and this is my first grade class picture. You see me? Everyone pick me out? That is my best smile. How many of you are thinking, he doesn't stick out at all in this picture? How many of you are thinking, he kind of sticks out a little bit? How many of you are thinking, he's the only Asian kid in that picture? Yeah, he does stick out. I think that is a complicated question. I've been trying to answer that question for a long time with my photographs. Trying to understand who sticks out, who fits in, and who gets to say. I'm not just the only Asian kid in that picture. I'm the only Asian kid in my entire elementary school. I'm the only Asian kid in junior high. And finally, one day in high school, I remember this other Asian dude showed up. And when I saw this other Asian student, I avoided him. Why would I do this? I don't think at the time I was really even conscious that I was doing this. I didn't want to think about it. I didn't think about it for a long time. I really didn't think about it until well into my career as a photographer. My third book. Took a 9-month road trip around the country thinking about this question. Who am I? Born and raised, Duluth, Minnesota. Read the same books, saw the same TV shows, Hollywood movies as my fellow students. You don't grow up with a mirror in front of you. The people around you, they become your mirror. You can look in the mirror every day. Never see yourself the way other people see you. When I saw this other student, I think I was seeing myself for the first time. I thought, oh, he sticks out. That must be a nice takeout. I did not want to think about that. I didn't take that photograph either. That's my dad. Dad comes from China. Family says to him as a teenager, we're having a tough time over here. People are starving. We're going to send you to the land, to America, land of opportunity. And we're going to send you to a place called Duluth, Minnesota. Because there's a family from the village. They own a Chinese restaurant there. And you're going to work for them. And you're going to make some money. And you're going to send that money back to us. Imagine the pressure. He comes to Duluth, works for this family, dishwasher, cook, manager, works his way up, saves up his money, and opens up his own restaurant, Joe Huie's Cafe. How many people here have been to Joe Huie's Cafe in Duluth? So that's my father standing in front of the restaurant he opened. He achieved his idea of the American dream. Worked every single day. Never took a day off, 365 days a year. 8 o'clock, go to work. I'm already great and ready to go to school. He doesn't go home until 8 o'clock at night. I know not to bother him. I really didn't get to know him until I started working for him when I was 12 years old. My brothers, though, they had it much harder. They had to work every single day, 60 hours a week. They have to be at school at 3:30. Don't get off work until 10, 11 at night. Fall asleep in class. Too embarrassed to tell the teacher why. My father did not want them to go to college. He wanted them to keep working at the restaurant. It was about family survival. But by the time I was in high school, the restaurant was doing so well, and I was afforded the luxury and the privilege to choose to do whatever I wanted. And because they could afford it, I chose to go to college. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I went to college, so I majored in business. Then I took a literature course. And I thought, maybe I'd become a writer. I switched majors. Then I decided on journalism. It was the time of Watergate. Journalists were, I don't know, it was a profession that seemed good to go into. I started off UMD and then transferred to the University of Minnesota and was fortunate to get a position working for the Minnesota Daily. And it was overwhelming to move from a small campus to a campus of 40,000 students. Tough to make friends. So I was lonely. I thought, well, it would be interesting to do a story on loneliness. Cure for loneliness lies usually with the lonely. First of 2 parts. Talking to my fellow students about their loneliness, I think, helped me to understand better about my own loneliness. And then I bought a camera. I took an intro to photography course. That's my only formal training. Got an A. Considered switching from journalism because I was in the news editorial division, so not photojournalism. I considered switching to photography, but I thought, too late, get my BA in journalism, teach myself some photography and see what happens. My first subjects were my parents. The house where I grew up in, a little brick house. My mom would hang dried fish above the furnace. As you can see the back of my mom there. My mom and dad in their bedroom. So photographing my own life, that's where I started. Mom, she always sat in that chair next to the TV. TV was always on because us kids watched a lot of TV. But Mom, she never watched TV because she never learned to speak English. Came to this country as an adult, raised me and my older siblings. Never had the time, I think, even desire to learn English. I think a part of her never really left China. My first language was what my mom spoke. 我講台山話，我講台山話少少. I speak the Taishan dialect, but I just speak a little bit. But once I started school, my English got better, my Chinese got worse though. And since my mom never learned to speak English as I got older, at times it was difficult to communicate with my own mother. Weird, right? Not that uncommon for the children of immigrants. Mama had a lot of influence over me, but whatever influence she had, it had to compete with all of those images that came out of that box. Popular culture. You think I saw many people on TV when I was growing up who looked like me? If I did, they either knew Kung Fu, owned a Chinese restaurant, they always had an accent. Those images formed and confused me. And so I started doing photography, teaching myself, trying this, trying that. These are 2 photographs from early in my career. This is what I should do with students. I have them discuss photographs. Which one would you choose? Which one are you more drawn to? Left or right? Let's take a poll. Who's more drawn to the one on the left? Who's more drawn to the one on the right? Who can't decide? We like seeing both as a diptych. Students will sometimes say, I'm drawn to the one on the left because all of those faces. So much to look at. Some will say, I'm drawn to the one on the right because there's no background. You're forced to look at his face and you wonder about his life. My dad. I was studying famous photographers. I was studying the work of Richard Avedon, iconic photographer, fashion photographer, worked for Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, but also photographed famous people and people on the street. Had his photographs exhibited in museums. But whenever he photographed, he always used a white backdrop, whether it was in the studio or on the street. So I decided to buy a white backdrop, put it in the basement of our house in Duluth, bought some lights, photographed my dad. Then I got a gig working for, I was commissioned to photograph the 100-year anniversary of the Saint Paul Public Library. And so my job was getting paid to photograph day-long events outside and inside the library, people celebrating. And I'm photographing, and I turn around and I see this scene. They're looking at something behind me. This kid who's not quite a kid anymore, entering adolescence, wearing this uniform, but still a kid. Balloon tied around his wrist and a box of popcorn. You're supposed to learn the rules of photography. I'm making up as I go. You should be aware of what's behind a subject. That's what makes a photograph interesting. This tree growing out of him, and all of those heads and those eyes, and that head growing out of his head. And even that box of popcorn seems to play a compositional role. I remember thinking, I don't know if the people who hire me are going to want this, but this is interesting. Maybe this is art. Richard Avedon photograph. I asked students, who can tell me who this famous person is? They have no idea. One 7th grader said, it must be Elon Musk. Good guess. After I got my BA in journalism, I moved back to Duluth and started working for the startup magazine, Port Cities. My first published story was on my father. I decided to do a story on my father because I didn't know him very well. He didn't like to talk about the past. So many questions I never asked my own father. He worked all the time. How many of you feel you grew up not knowing a lot of things about your own family? Who knows why we don't ask? So I decided to give myself permission to ask my father questions. Not as a son, but as a reporter. Followed him around for a week, asked him questions I never asked, talked to the people he worked with. It's the best thing I ever did with my dad. Since then, I photographed thousands of people, almost all of them strangers. Photographing all of those people, not unlike photographing my father, who was a bit of a stranger to me. And in that same magazine, I decided to turn that basement of my house into a portrait studio. I put this ad in. Portrait for the 80s. Did not get one call. Some other photo essays I did for the magazine. I can see that what I was drawn to was trying to understand my own life. Immigrants. People my father's age. Cafes. Then I thought it'd be interesting to photograph people's prized possessions. I just walked around, went to a school, asked people, this kid, he prizes suit. And then in 1981, when I was 26 years old, after I moved from Duluth back to Minneapolis, I started my career, or continued my career. I took a workshop from Gary Winogrand, iconic street photographer. That's Gary Winogrand. There's me, and also Paul Shambroom, photographer. 1 week workshop at Film in the Cities, and he was able to articulate this idea about photography and art, things I never really considered. And during that week, I decided I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to be a street photographer, like Gary Winogrand, be an artist. I had a couple of his books. I thought, I want my own books. Exhibit in museums. Here are other photographers that I studied, and while I was photographing, either consciously or subconsciously emulated them. And so I tried to make a living as a journalist and as a photographer, editorial and doing commercial work. Tough to make a living as a freelance writer. You know, sometimes they pay 10 cents a word. It was easier to make a living as a photographer. So I gradually transitioned to doing more photography than writing. I worked for golf magazines. I did some fashion. I worked for business magazines. The person who invented rollerblades from the Twin Cities. Photographed CEOs. This is Jenny O. Turkeys. So all kinds of business portraits. Photographed famous politicians. Did photo essays about my fellow Americans who sometimes weren't considered true Americans or true Minnesotans. Mostly made a living as a bartender. Worked at Saja on Saint Paul, and we just reopened. Worked for 9 years, perfect job. Work at night, and then during the day, build your career. But it was difficult. How many of you know the feeling of knowing what you want to do, and every day that goes by, and you're not doing the thing you want to do, it eats at you? Who knows that feeling? I had so much doubt. How many of you have doubt? Plus, I had to make a living. Then I got this gig, working for a weekly city business newspaper, and I was their only photographer. I was an independent contractor, but I was their only photographer. And with all my other gigs, I was finally able to quit bartending. It was great to make a living. But after several years, I got kind of burnt out because I wasn't doing the thing I wanted to do. I could see I wasn't doing a very good job either. And so after several years, one day they called me in the office and they did me a favor. They fired me. One of the best things that ever happened to me. All the doubt went out the window. I thought, what have I got to lose? I just got fired. I might as well start my first project. I decided to photograph the Frogtown neighborhood. I thought, what would it be like to grow up in a neighborhood where people look like you? What would that be like? When I tell students I photographed thousands of strangers, you know what their reaction is? That's creepy. Then I ask, how many of you feel you are a stranger to many of your neighbors and to your fellow students? Most nod their heads. What is a stranger? So I decided I would just walk down the street with my camera gear, walk up to people and say, I am a photographer, I'm a journalist, I'm photographing everyday life in Frogtown, and we're going to have a public exhibition. Would you be interested in being part of this exhibition? A lot of people said no. A lot of people said yes. Walked up to this family moving into the neighborhood. They said yes. Then I would say, I'm not going to pose you, I'm just going to hang out with you, try to get something natural. Which one would you choose? Left. Right. So most of the photographs I'm going to show you today I took with film. But back in the day, because it's cheaper, you buy it in rolls of 100 feet. In the dark room, you put it in a little canister, turn on the light, cut off, and then put it in. And so when you are photographing, the first couple of frames are light struck, right? And so when I'm getting ready to photograph, I put a new roll in, I forward the film, take a couple of shots, I'm not even looking at the camera, and then I'm getting ready. The first one I took without looking through the viewfinder when they weren't ready. And that's the one I chose. I felt that the tilt and being slightly out of focus with that swing set, the playful feeling of kids on place, and then this family that looked like they're dropped up from the other side of the planet with this somber expression, counterbalanced by the swing set. I thought, how can I take more photographs like this while looking through the viewfinder? This was 1995, 1993 when I took the photograph. Then last year, I was part of an exhibition in New York. I went back and picked an image that I thought was more hopeful. So I go back and forth all the time. What is a good photograph? I'm still trying to figure it out. Giant Burma python snakes. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're walking down the street, you saw these guys with giant Burma python snakes. How many of you would go, I am walking on the other side of the street? I am running to the other side of the street. How many of you would go, cool, snakes, I'm going to talk to those guys? I am just like you. I'm just like anyone. I walk down the street, I look at people I don't know, I think whatever I think, and then I get outside my bubble and walk up to them and talk to them. If they say yes, then I'm just trying to figure out how can I translate this reality in front of me into the set of two-dimensional facts that we call a photograph. What makes an interesting photograph? I thought, well, that's interesting. And then, often, I interview them, include their words alongside the photograph. We're just really good friends. We don't go out looking for trouble. We just sit here and have fun. They're like friendship rings, except you can always get rid of a ring. We're bonded for life. Interesting what people have to say. 2 years, photographing hundreds of people, just walking up to them on the street, going into businesses. Often people will invite me into their homes. Saw this family sitting on the front steps. They said, sure. Again, I asked students, which one would you choose? How many of you would choose the one on the left? The one on the right? Students will say, often they'll say, well, the one on the left because I like their expressions. You get a feeling of their family relationships. Other students will say, I like the one on the right. They're not posing. I like the kid in front, distracting everyone. I never know. I'll pick a photograph for an exhibition and I'll go back. Sometimes years later, I say, I'll pick the wrong one. That's why I take a lot. I don't pose people. I don't say, stand here, do this. I'm just waiting for the right moment. That's the first frame. And then something happened in the last frame. And since you roll your own film, the beginning of the roll, the first couple of frames are light struck. But the last frame is usually that light struck too. Something happened in the last frame. I knew it in the moment. It's very rare. I said, that's it. And I couldn't take another one. I said, oh no, it's the last frame. It's going to be light struck. I took another roll just in case, but the moment was gone. I rushed to the darkroom. I thought, if this turns out, I'm never going to roll my own film again. I don't care. I don't want to lose one frame. Where it was light struck, even made it more perfect. When she raised the baby, everything fell into place. Pyramid of bodies. Triangles everywhere in their arms. Above them, the archway. You see them as a family, but you also see them as individuals. It's almost too perfect. People think I posed them. I just waited for the right moment. It's like a Renaissance painting. I remember one student said, it's the Lion King. Interesting interpretation. 1993. I don't know if I've taken a better photograph or as good a photograph since. I don't know if the idea is to necessarily get better or just do more. Family. Families. Neighbors. Saturday afternoon. Hanging out in front of their houses on the sidewalk. Actually talking to each other. I ask students, do you see this as much these days? People talking to each other? No. Why not? They hold up their phones. Is it just technology? No. Stranger danger. Just awkward to talk to people. Photographing the scene for about 20 minutes. People are moving around. Turn around. I see this. Circle of life. Are they more different or are they more the same? Or is it hard to say? Which one's grumpier? maybe the baby. Big question. When are we different? When are we the same? It's like a merry-go-round around this tree. White and black cars, white and black bikes, white and black shoes. The play of light and shadow. Boys' pants, Zubas, like the bark of the tree. And then this black and white photograph of these two boys. They're not just friends. It's like they're looking into a mirror. Even the way they're holding their hands are the same. How much will their friendship shape their perspectives as they grow older? How much have our friendships shaped our perspectives? When are we different? And when are we the same? And who gets to say? My first exhibition was not in a museum. It was on a corner of University and Dale on a grassy lot. 173 photographs. I made my darkroom, pinned to blocks of styrofoam, shrink wrapped it. It was up for 1 month. I had finally become an artist, a street photographer, like Gary Winogrand. It took me a long time, though, to really call myself an artist. Who are we? We are the strangers. Here's a snapshot of my career in about a minute. All different projects. My first projects were in black and white. The photographers I studied photographed in black and white. I thought black and white was more real, more artful. The color could get in the way of how we see each other. Later, I photographed in color as well. I feel like a fly on the wall, observing humanity. Played basketball much of my life. Thought we'd do interesting photograph ballers. I approached these ballers in Loring Park. They said, sure. And then right after the ball flew out of bounds, and just right before it hit me in the head, I was able to take this shot. Street artist, drawing me. When I had more hair. Students go, oh, creepy. As a student, I got to know I photographed at school, and then photographed the students waiting for the bus to go home. And after taking this photograph, photographed the student at home in color. Several years after my Frogtown exhibit, I thought it'd be interesting to do a larger exhibit. And instead of photographing one neighborhood, photograph the dozen neighborhoods connected by Lake Street. Saw these students who had just graduated from middle school and rented a limo to celebrate the middle school graduation. They said, sure. So I started snapping away. You never know which photograph will end up in the museum. International curator had selected 23 artists from around the world. I was the only one selected from the Midwest. It was a great honor to have my photographs exhibited in such a prestigious international museum, especially because I didn't grow up in art culture. I never once heard my parents from China utter the word art. As far as I know, they never set foot in the museum. Everything that is in a museum is art, whether you agree or not. But what happens when you put those same photographs on the street? Then what are they? 4 years photographing thousands of people. And then in the year 2000, took this photograph and about 800 other photographs and placed them in store windows along 6 miles of Lake Street. And so I took this photograph and see the store behind them, East Lake Electronics. Took that photograph and placed it in the window of East Lake Electronics. So in May of the year 2000, photographs just started appearing up and down Lake Street. There was no explanation about the exhibit. My name wasn't anywhere. Just the words of the people that I interviewed, their direct quotes that accompanied the photograph. It was up to anyone walking by to decide for themselves why this was here. I remember one person thought it was a memorial service for the people who died on Lake Street. I remember another person thought it was a memorial service for the photographer who died. How often can you walk down the street and see a photo of you rather than an advertisement trying to sell you something? We put them in bus stops. And on the Midtown Global Market before, when it was abandoned, it was an empty building, the former Sears building. We put notebooks in the different coffee shops along Lake Street, invited people to write their comments. Here's what one person wrote: do not sign their name. We put their words on the back of the book. Where art is not afraid to look into the eyes of us, regular poor folks just living our lives. As art comes down from the pretentious, self-conscious, and exclusive upper-class realm that becomes community art, art with a purpose, humane. These are the pictures you'll never see in Nike ads or car ads or perfume ads. These are the majority of Americans picking up their broken identities and trying to scrape together a living, a culture, an identity, a life. Most of the images we see are of advertisements trying to sell us euphoria and prestige we could never achieve. We look around us and are disappointed. We struggle but don't measure up. These photos show us real and valuable just as we are. They're sad because they aren't the perfect images of others we're used to seeing. They're empowering for the same reason. Thanks for these images and a chance to respond. Peace. And that year, I was named Artist of the Year by the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. It took so long for me to call myself an artist. So after this, I thought, well, I guess I'm an artist now. And then the following year, I declared bankruptcy. Investment in my career. And I managed to do over 40 projects so far. Biggest cliche is picture's worth 1,000 words. But whose words? I have students. What do you see? What do you see first? Is there anything here you can relate to? Or things you cannot relate to? You could ask this person a question. What would you ask them? What do you think are in those bags? Where's this person going? First thing students see, McDonald's. How many McDonald's commercials do you think you've seen in your lifetime? All of you shake their heads. How much of all those commercials shaped our perspectives? You see the golden arches before you see this. That person's picking up the trash. That person's picking up the trash that McDonald's makes. That's dangerous. Might get hit by a car. That person's a scrapper. Our family's done this. Yes. Got to know this person. Took that long pole. Got up early. Went to dumpsters. Garbage cans. Picked out pop cans, beer cans, bits of metal. Took all day long to fill up those 2 bags. Transported to recycling center. Got paid $16. Most people think this person is homeless. After taking this photograph, I photographed the scrapper at home. She is a scrapper. She lives with her family. She, like my mother, came from Asia. She came from Cambodia. Survived a genocide. Many people she knew did not survive. Made her way all the way to South Minneapolis. And like my mother, never learned to speak English. With a family member translating, I said, why do you do this? She said, it's my job. Do it for the money. Plus, it gives me a purpose every week. She said, but it's a tough job. Show me the scars on her legs from kids who threw rocks at her. Makes me think of all the people that we see. We wonder. Ask students, how many of you can think of students you see all the time in the hallways, or maybe sits on the other side of the room, and you go, I'm never going to talk to that person. They're just different than me. How would you know? She'd written a poem. Does anyone here read or write poetry? Usually I have students read it. I think given the time, you can just read it in your mind. She said that she wrote the poem in a way that was ambiguous, so that anyone reading it could decide for themselves their own meanings. I said, I can relate. I like photographs that are ambiguous. She said the poem was inspired by her grandmother, who just passed away. She said her grandmother helped raise her in Mexico, and that she would take walks along the Mississippi, or she would walk in wilderness, in nature, in Mexico, and sometimes she would sing to her. They said, how can I photograph you in a way that reflects the ambiguities of your poem? So she suggested walking along the Mississippi River, and she decided to sing to her grandmother a Mexican folk song. And the emotions took over. And I picked this photograph to accompany her poem. The body slightly contorted like the tree on the left, and then on the right, a lush evergreen, dappled with snow. I have a lot more photographs, but we'll end it right here.